So yeah, why don't we dive in? Because I know I can ramble for a long time, especially with Jess, and we talk for hours. Shelley, feel free to jump in whenever you want. And if anyone else has any questions like during Jess's talk, yeah, by all means, just stick the hand up or just unmute and then I'll see that. And I'll keep an eye on the chat as well. So Jess.
Well, Shelley had her hand raised, so why don't you do real quick?
Shelley. Oh, your actual hand. I'm looking for like a Zoom hand thing.
I don't see the Zoom hand, so I was physically raising my hand in case you could see it.
Sweet.
I just thought I'd introduce myself to the group. Yeah, I'm Shelley. I'm also in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. My goals outside of my regular day-to-day job, I'm an environmental regulator. But otherwise, I have passions around uplifting humanity as well. And my current focus is really about how to create conversations that increase connections. And I'm really interested actually in the vision of the future of humanity. You know, I feel like with things changing so fast, if we can find the ways that we like to connect and uplift each other and think about what we want to create as a human species into the future, that might also help inspire us into the directions we want to go with so many challenges like climate and so forth coming. So in terms of blocks, I think one of the challenges I've always got is often self-acceptance and continue to believe in bigger dreams. And so anything on that line of your story, Jess and Dave, like I think mindset is a big thing. I'm really good at setting daily goals to sort of incrementally make my way towards things, but often it's like sometimes I kind of lose sight of the passion or like the belief in self. And so I just, conversations on that I think would be helpful for me to hear from everyone on. Yeah.
Thanks, Shelley.
That's a huge part of my message, is how to come to that point of that ownership of our own visions and embracing who we are and our gifts, and that enables me to have the courage to like push through that fear and really step into a place of empowerment, no matter what anyone thinks. So I'll absolutely, that's one of my great things to talk about. And you know, I think I align with a lot of the visions here, which is to really find the really great people and support them and serve them, and focus on all the positive changes that we can lead people to. And for me to step into a leadership role and share my experience and, you know, hope that even if that inspires one person to go after their dreams, that's a big part of why I'm doing this. So I am very vulnerable and open with my story. Shelley, I know you've got your daughter right there. I'm a little nervous about talking about some of it because I don't want her to, because there is trauma in my history, and I've overcome that. I'm still learning and growing like we all are. So I'm going to keep the background of my story very brief. If you want to know more about, you know, more details of what I've overcome, I have recorded, I think, 4 or 5 interviews with podcasts in the last 2 weeks. I was on a TV show. I can share all those links later. Follow me, friend me, DM me with any questions. There was a really big podcast done that was put on Spotify and Apple that I kind of made myself cry listening to it, because I went, you know, pretty deep in that. And I am going to be on TV show on the list by NBC in the coming weeks. And that's really going to be targeted on a segment on 3 ways to overcome and combat depression using art. So I'm going to be demoing and talking about how I do it, what it does to the brain and the body, and why everybody should try it. So those are kind of the things. I have a lot happening very quickly, and it's really exciting. And it is really because I shifted in COVID. I found my worth, I found my voice, and I really began to grow and believe in that we are authentic human beings. And for me to shift from believing I was a mistake in humanity, you know, I was just wrong, everything was wrong about me, and the self-loathing and everything that came with my addiction, my things that I've overcome. So to be in this headspace and to be doing what I love and realize that my story, my art, what I put into the world there's room for all of us to celebrate what we do and to contribute in positive ways, and to like fan the flames on people to believe in, you know, what their calling is, what their passion is, to find pathways to even identify. And there's a lot of people that talk about not even knowing what their purpose is, and to find, you know, at least start on that path, on that journey of digging deeper into who we are, becoming self-aware, and connecting the dots so that we can really live this life. I mean, I wake up every day, and COVID or not, like, I am so excited and grateful to be alive and to share my story, and really have a heart to serve others through any means necessary. So, you ready for me to just launch in, Dave?
Yeah, I'm just posting. Feel free to interrupt at any time. We're all friends. We're here for authentic reasons. So yeah, we're family at this point. So let's do it.
Great.
Thank you.
I had a tremendous childhood. I didn't have any kind of trauma other than growing up with a special needs sister. And I think a lot of my overachieving was born there. My need to be seen, patted on the back, and I felt a lot of guilt for being blessed with talent or things that I was just naturally good at. I always wanted to be an artist. I was a musician. When I got to college, I was also a Division I athlete at Wisconsin. So that sports psychology really resonates with everything I'm putting in now. I think sports are an incredibly powerful way to learn to, so much of it is mental, push through physical pain, mental blocks, all of that, to work collaboratively with the team towards a vision and a goal. And I've taken what I learned in college. I had Olympic aspirations in that sport, and you know, my addiction and some trauma kind of detoured me from that. But you know, I guess I want to preface this by saying that every experience I've gone through that's been painful and dark and the end of my road, I am so grateful for all of that, because it brought me to who I am today. And I love who I am today. And so I really look at the parts of this story, and without shame. I want to really work towards breaking a stigma around mental health, around eating disorders, around substance abuse, around addiction of any sort, emotional, psychological abuse, that happens behind closed doors to so many more people than we realize. And that feeling of being isolated and trapped, and, you know, within a jail of my own creation in many, many ways, and being a victim, wanting to blame others for my circumstance, and how I really have overcome so much of that. So I was heavily involved in art, music, tennis, basketball, all of that. High school, got to college. I had a very traumatic, so I had a very traumatic rape happen when I was 18, planted the seeds to kind of what took hold of me for the next 20 years. And you're good, Shelley. So that was kind of how my story is really about how one traumatic event, I invalidated that because it happens to so many, that I felt like, you know, I couldn't talk about it. I couldn't get help for it. I was ashamed of it. And even though I was genetically predisposed to addiction, my dad was in recovery, but I had all the red flags about what not to do. And yet I was in so much emotional agony that, because I was unexperienced prior to that. I was still a whimsical dreamer, head in the clouds kind of teenager, even at 18, and believed in the fairy tale, believed in true love, and saving for that. So I went off to college. I started at Skidmore. I found the sport of rowing, and I was genetically built for that sport. I'm 5'10". I'm tall. And I didn't realize, in hindsight, it's 2020, but subconsciously I was on a mission. I do love the sport, but I was on a mission to become as physically powerful as possible. Within a month on that team, I was brand new. I had beat all the women and half the men on the team in the indoor rowing machine test that we did. And the coach really took me under his wing, and it was like, you have a chance at this. So I ended up transferring to Wisconsin to row Division I. I was still a fine art major, but I felt like I had my body. I was going to just go for this dream. but I had repressed and stuffed that event that happened and believed that it was never going to rear its ugly head, because I was this empowered, physically strong, powerful athlete and rising star and pats on the back. And inside I was, starting to really battle an eating disorder. When I wasn't training, I was partying as hard as I trained. And my junior year, we have these indoor competitions in the wintertime to keep training. And in the whole Midwest, all the Big Ten schools came to this event, and we were hosting, and I was the chosen, expected to win the gold medal in this race against Michigan and Iowa and Ohio and all these big, big schools. And I was tiny in that Big Ten, like other people on my team, they were 6 feet, 6'1", 6'2". There were women that's 6'3". So for me to be like the powerhouse was my ego. I came in second place, which to me at that moment was failure. It took me directly back to that night when I was 18. I went out and drank very, very heavily that night, dragging my knuckles along brick walls, just sobbing because I was having flashbacks. Those were the first of the flashbacks that came. And I'm an artist. I'm a visual thinker. It's like a movie reel going through my head most of the time. And the impact of that was pretty major. I ended up dropping out of college to take a year off to try, and my coach saw me unravel, kind of hand plucked me and matched me with a therapist. And it was the beginning of, it was a Band-Aid for me. It got me just up to the point where I could function again. I started an art studio because I was babysitting just to make money. And, I kind of realized that I liked kids, and they were really fun and cool. And I had all these art skills that were so easy to just share. And I thought, well, this would be a great way to make money. If I'm not going to go back to row, I don't know, I'll start an art school. So I ended up buying a house, housing an art studio, starting my first business. And all of a sudden, bam, I'm making $50,000 a year, which back in 95 was a significant amount of money for a 21-year-old kid, 20-year-old, 21-year-old kid. And it also enabled me to have this dual life of the party scene. And I got into other substances, and I ended up getting pregnant. When I thought it was just one baby, I was going to stay in Madison and raise the baby, have the school, just do the thing. And then I went back home, had an ultrasound. There was baby A and baby B. And I was like, all right, I'll go home. This is way more than I was expecting at the age of 22. So I packed up a U-Haul, sold the house, moved home. My parents were amazing. My sister was amazing. They brought me in those 2 years, the first 2 years of the twins' life. And I was never going to have kids, and I was never going to get married. Those were my two things that, I was going to be. I have a flair for the dramatic. I was going to be this passionate artist, totally devoted to my craft, and maybe reignite that Olympic dream and live, in the country with my studio and, just the kind of the dreams we have. And when I had that baby girl and baby boy in my arms, I went, oh my God, this is love. And everything shifted. And I treasure those first 2 years, especially because it was me, those babies, my parents, it was family. It was just a time with very little stress. And I was able to kind of heal. The father chose to go to law school and not be a part of it, which was hard. But I got through that. And, when they were 9 months old, my parents said, go join, the Pittsburgh. We have all these rivers here, go get back into rowing. So I got back into rowing, and I kind of found my people again. And I realized I'm a racer. It just reignited that I really do love the sport, for the passion, for me, everything in my life has been about the feeling. And that outlet was always healthy. It was a way to escape reality, to access the flow. Time and reality would go away. I could just be completely present in the moment on that river with my team. And that was a gift for me, because when I was not in that flow state, I really churned with a lot of what's wrong with me? Why am I still broken? I ended up meeting my husband there. We knew each other for a very brief time before we were engaged, and engaged 4 months, got married, had a baby right away. But we ended up having 5 children more. The youngest 4 are 14 months apart, and they are my greatest works of art for sure. I'm so grateful for putting beautiful and just these nurtured human beings in the world, because I really poured everything I had into raising them, and still do. So I had 2 companies that I started and had during that marriage of 17 years. One was in art licensing. I did do a lot with licensing images out to manufacturers, and the other one was around celebrating children's art. And both of them were not anything about me wanting to. I was doing it for the market. I was doing it to celebrate children, but my spirit was not attached to it. Like, I wasn't putting anything vulnerable out in the world, and was not safe enough or healthy enough mentally. In the background, I had developed a severe anxiety disorder, social phobias, lots of anxiety and depression happening. I had this front of this powerhouse, perfect, fairly wealthy suburban housewife that was also an entrepreneur, that also had these 7 little perfectly dressed children. Long story short, the eating disorder was a very shameful background secret. I maintained a normal weight, or I was heavy, or it was just under, but it was nothing I was very careful that it was not visible. And it was my food issue. It was not, couldn't say those words. So I'm careful to say those words. And luckily I was pregnant for a good decade there, and that kept the substance abuse at bay. But I did have these scripts that I was abusing in between. And when the 7th was born, I put my foot down, and kind of the marriage was over at that point. Everything escalated. I stayed 10 more years. And the floor fell out in 2013 when my dad was diagnosed with cancer. My 15-year-old was diagnosed with cystic fibrosis, congenital lobar emphysema, and another lung condition. My daughter's knees were both reconstructed. Like, it was like this darkness enveloped the entire family. And my dad passed away. My husband's, these things are universal. They happen to all of us, but we just had this period where it all happened within 6 months. And I was so close to my dad, and my children, my parents were a daily part of their childhood. And to watch my children crumble when my dad passed away, because it was so unexpected, my heart was ripped in a million pieces, and I really couldn't even cope with the magnitude of my own grief. I stopped painting. I tried the best I could to get my kids through it, and I numbed out. And that's where I went off the rails with the pharmaceutical pill abuse, off the rails. I've learned that the drug of choice doesn't matter. It's the spiritual breakdown, the loss of identity, spiritual void inside, and the accompanying physical effects that I was at every specialist in the city. I was sure I was dying physically, find the cancer, find the, there's something killing me. And I was in complete denial that I had any issue. So, I isolated completely. I don't have a lot of memory of 2015 through 17, the end of 17. And I tried to, kind of end the road for myself on December 5th of 2017. And luckily I woke up, and that was my first flash of like all the layers being peeled off just for a split second. And I went, okay, I'm so grateful to be alive. What did I almost do? I almost abandoned these children, and I don't want this. So I tried to get off what I was taking for the next 6 weeks, and it was a battle. I'd last 6 hours, go back to it. I'd last 12 hours, I'd go back to it. The most I had was 17 hours. And that made me feel worse and worse. But it did on January 30th of 18. I was trying to paint again. I was trying to pull my bootstraps up like I'd always done over and over again and be that courageous person. And, that was my second kind of flash into seeing it for what it was. And I just broke. I just broke. And thank goodness, when they say that when the pain is great enough, we are willing to change and take that first step.